Hello friends, welcome to African Urban Tales, where stories come alive. Do well to hit that subscription button and turn on notifications bell. Now, relax as we dive into today's story. The rain pounded against the windows of St. Mary's Hospital, streaking the glass with a steady rhythm that matched the beeping of the monitors inside the maternity ward. Nurses rushed in and out of delivery rooms, their voices a mixture of urgency and exhaustion. The hospital was unusually crowded that night. Three emergency deliveries had just taken place, and another woman was being wheeled in on a stretcher. In room 204, Elizabeth Miller clutched the hand of her husband, Jonathan Miller, her face slick with sweat. She had been in labor for over 10 hours, and exhaustion weighed heavily on her body. "You're doing great, sweetheart," Jonathan whispered, brushing damp strands of her golden brown hair from her forehead. "Just a little more, okay?" Elizabeth gave a weak nod, her blue eyes filled with both pain and determination. "I just want her to be safe," she gasped. Dr. Langston, the attending obstetrician, smiled reassuringly. "One more push, Elizabeth. You're almost there." With a final cry, Elizabeth pushed with all her might. A moment later, a newborn's wail filled the room. Relief flooded her body as the doctor lifted the tiny infant into view. "It's a girl," Dr. Langston announced. Elizabeth let out a shaky breath, tears forming in her eyes. "Sophia? My little Sophia." The baby was cleaned, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, and placed in Elizabeth's arms. Jonathan leaned over, staring at his daughter with pride. "She's beautiful," he murmured, pressing a kiss to his wife's temple. Meanwhile, just 2 doors down in room 206, Rebecca Carter was experiencing a very different kind of delivery. The room was dimly lit, the air thick with tension. Unlike Elizabeth, Rebecca had no husband holding her hand, just a nervous nurse hovering nearby. Rebecca bit her lip, her dark curls sticking to her face as she gritted her teeth through another contraction. "Where is Daniel?" she gasped between labored breaths. "He's on his way, Mrs. Carter," Nurse Margaret Lawson assured her. "Got stuck in traffic because of the storm." Rebecca closed her eyes, willing herself to hold on a little longer. But her body had other plans. The moment another contraction hit, she screamed, gripping the sides of the hospital bed. "You need to push now," Dr. Green instructed. Rebecca cried out as she bore down, her body shaking from the effort. Then, just like that, a second wail filled the hospital room. "Another healthy baby girl," Dr. Green announced, gently placing the newborn in Margaret's arms. Rebecca, her body drained, reached weakly for her child. "Olivia," she whispered, her lips trembling as she stared at the tiny, red-faced baby. "My Olivia." Just as Margaret finished cleaning Olivia and swaddling her in a blanket, the door burst open, and Daniel Carter rushed in, his clothes soaked from the rain. "Am I too late?" he panted. Rebecca gave him a tired but warm smile. "Meet your daughter." Daniel's eyes softened as he approached, gazing down at the baby in awe. "She's perfect." But outside the 2 rooms, chaos was unfolding. Nurse Margaret Lawson, overworked and flustered, had been running between rooms all night. She had just finished tending to Olivia when another nurse called her from down the hall. "Margaret, we need you in room 212. Margaret sighed, cradling Olivia. She hurried down the corridor, her mind a blur of patient charts and infant cries. When she reached the nursery, she quickly placed the baby in an empty crib labeled Carter and rushed off. Moments later, another nurse, unaware of Margaret's mix-up, wheeled 2 cribs into the maternity ward, one labeled Miller, the other Carter. "Time for these little angels to go back to their mothers," the nurse said, smiling as she gently placed the babies into their respective mothers' arms. Neither Elizabeth Miller nor Rebecca Carter noticed anything amiss. They were too exhausted, too enamored by the tiny bundles in their arms. "Welcome to the world, Sophia," Elizabeth whispered to the baby she believed was hers. "My sweet Olivia," Rebecca cooed, pressing a gentle kiss to the baby's forehead. Neither mother knew that their true daughters had just been placed into another woman's arms. Sophia grew up surrounded by luxury. The Miller mansion sat on a sprawling estate with a pool, tennis court, and private tutors at her disposal. She attended an elite private school where she was groomed to be the perfect daughter of a successful CEO. "Daddy, can we go to Paris for my birthday?" she asked one evening at dinner. Jonathan chuckled. "Of course, princess. Anywhere you want." Elizabeth smiled, watching her daughter twirl her fork through her plate of expensive pasta. Yet, sometimes, she felt something was off. Sophia had dark brown hair and deep brown eyes, features neither Elizabeth nor Jonathan shared. People occasionally commented on it. She must take after a grandparent, Elizabeth would say, brushing off the remarks. But deep inside, a strange unease lingered. Meanwhile, Olivia Carter grew up in a small, two-bedroom house on the outskirts of town. Money was tight, and she learned to be resourceful from a young age. "Mama, why don't I look like you?" she asked one evening as she helped Rebecca cook dinner. Rebecca hesitated. "You have my smile, sweetheart, and your daddy's stubbornness." Daniel ruffled Olivia's hair. "And that's what makes you perfect." But Olivia never quite felt like she fit in. She had a grace and elegance about her, one that seemed out of place in their rough neighborhood. She excelled in school, often earning top grades, and dreamed of something bigger than the life she knew. "I want to go to college, Mama," she said one night. Rebecca's heart ached. "We'll find a way to make it happen, baby. I promise." As the years passed, the girls unknowingly lived each other's lives. One in wealth, the other in struggle. But fate had a way of unraveling even the most carefully kept secrets. And the storm was only just beginning. It started with a simple routine checkup. Jonathan Miller, a wealthy and influential businessman, had gone for a comprehensive medical examination at the insistence of his doctor. At 52, he prided himself on his health, but the doctor had suggested a genetic screening as part of his routine assessment. "Nothing to worry about, Mr. Miller," the doctor had said. "It's just a precautionary test, given your family history." Jonathan had nodded, never expecting anything unusual. But a week later, when the results came in, his world turned upside down. The doctor sat across from him, looking hesitant. "Jonathan, there's something I need to tell you." Jonathan leaned forward, his fingers interlocked. "What is it?" The doctor hesitated. "The test results show that Sophia is not biologically related to you." Jonathan froze. The words echoed in his mind, but they made no sense. "That's impossible." The doctor cleared his throat. "I ran the tests twice. There's no mistake. She is not your biological daughter." Jonathan's heartbeat pounded in his ears. His grip on the armrest tightened. "Are you suggesting my wife?" He swallowed the bitter taste rising in his throat. "Are you telling me that Elizabeth cheated on me?" "I'm only presenting the results, Mr. Miller. But I advise you to discuss this with your wife." Jonathan stormed out of the hospital, his mind racing. That evening, in their luxurious mansion, Elizabeth Miller was setting the table when Jonathan walked in, his face dark with fury. He slammed the front door, making the chandelier tremble. Elizabeth frowned. "Jonathan, what's wrong?" He threw the medical report onto the dining table. "Would you like to explain this?" She picked up the papers, her hands shaking as she read through them. What is this?" "You tell me, Elizabeth," Jonathan spat. "How is it that our daughter, isn't mine?" Elizabeth's breath caught in her throat. "What are you saying? That's absurd." "Oh, is it?" He folded his arms. "I took a genetic test. Sophia is not my daughter. So tell me, Elizabeth, who the hell is her real father?" Tears welled in Elizabeth's eyes. "Jonathan, I swear, I have never. Don't lie to me." His voice was like a thunderclap. "Have you been lying to me for 16 years?" She shook her head frantically. "No, I swear on my life. I have never been unfaithful to you. There has to be some mistake." Jonathan scoffed. "A mistake? Science doesn't make mistakes, Elizabeth." Desperate, Elizabeth grabbed his hands. "Then let's do a full DNA test. Not just you. Me too. If there's a mistake, we'll find it." Jonathan exhaled sharply, nodding. "Fine. But if that test proves you've been lying, I will never forgive you." A week later, Jonathan and Elizabeth sat in the doctor's office together. Elizabeth was anxious, clutching the arms of the chair. The doctor sighed. "The results are in." He handed them a document. "Sophia is not only not Jonathan's biological daughter, she is not yours either, Elizabeth." Silence. The air seemed to be sucked out of the room. Elizabeth blinked. "What?" Jonathan's head snapped toward his wife. You mean to tell me she's not yours either?" The doctor nodded. "It means there was likely a mix-up at birth. Your biological daughter could be out there, living with another family." Jonathan ran a hand through his hair. This can't be real." Elizabeth was already sobbing. "Where is my real baby?" she whispered. The doctor sighed. We will have to contact the hospital where Sophia was born to investigate the records. It's possible another family is involved in this. Long for the news to leak. A scandal like this was too juicy for the tabloids to ignore. Within days, reporters swarmed outside the Miller mansion, eager for a statement. The Millers had no choice but to go public, confirming that an investigation was underway at St. Mary's Hospital. The hospital, under pressure, started digging through its old records. And deep within the dusty archives, they found an old name on the records of Sophia's birth, Rebecca Carter. Meanwhile, miles away in a modest neighborhood, Olivia Carter sat at the kitchen table, staring at her reflection in an old mirror. She had always felt different. Her family had dark hair and tanned skin, yet she was lighter, with delicate features that didn't resemble anyone in her family. She pushed the thoughts away. She had a math test to prepare for. Olivia, her mother, Rebecca Carter, called from the kitchen. "Coming, Mama," Olivia replied, shoving her books aside. As she entered the kitchen, she saw her parents sitting at the table with worried expressions. The TV was on, and a news anchor was speaking. Authorities suspect that another baby may have been switched 16 years ago in St. Mary's Hospital. Families are urged to come forward for testing. Rebecca turned to her husband, Daniel Carter. "Do you think it's possible?" Daniel shook his head. "That's ridiculous. Olivia is our daughter." Rebecca hesitated. "She doesn't look like us, Daniel." Olivia frowned. "What's going on?" Rebecca turned off the TV. "Nothing, sweetheart." But Olivia's mind was already racing. Across town, a woman sat alone in a small apartment, gripping a newspaper. Margaret Lawson, the retired nurse, stared at the headline about the switched babies. Her hands trembled. 16 years, she whispered. It's been 16 years. She had lived with the guilt for too long. But now, with the investigation happening, she knew it was only a matter of time before they found out the truth. Her phone rang. She hesitated before answering. A deep voice spoke. "They're on to us, Margaret. If they find out you were involved." "I never meant for this to happen," she snapped. "It was a mistake. A mistake that could destroy everything," the voice said coldly. Margaret swallowed hard. "I have to fix it." She hung up, grabbed her coat, and stepped out into the night. It was time to face the past. The moment of truth. The investigation into the St. Mary's Hospital baby mix-up reached its shocking conclusion. Sophia Miller was actually Olivia Carter. Olivia Carter was actually Sophia Miller. The revelation shook both families to their core. The media went wild. News reporters stood outside the Miller mansion and the Carter household, shoving microphones at the stunned parents. "We have confirmed that the wealthy Miller family and the struggling Carter family had their daughters switched at birth. What happens next? Who will raise whom?" The whole world was watching. Inside the Miller mansion, Jonathan Miller paced in his grand living room, rage burning in his eyes. Elizabeth sat frozen on the couch, clutching a glass of wine with a shaking hand. Across from them, Sophia sat stiffly, her hands clenched together. "So, I'm not your daughter," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. Jonathan exhaled sharply. "You were never meant to be in this family." "Jonathan," Elizabeth gasped. Jonathan ignored her, running a hand through his hair. "All these years, I raised another man's child, and my real daughter grew up in poverty." Sophia flinched. "So what does that mean? What am I supposed to do now?" Elizabeth reached for her, but Sophia pulled away. "Sophia." "No, Olivia, whatever you want to be called. You are still our daughter in every way that matters." "No, I'm not," Sophia said bitterly. "Not to him." She glared at Jonathan, her heart breaking. Jonathan slammed his fist on the table. "I want my real daughter back." Elizabeth gasped. "You mean Olivia?" "Yes," Jonathan said firmly. "She's a Miller. She belongs here." Sophia swallowed, the words cutting her deeply. Rebecca Carter sat at the kitchen table, staring at the news headlines on her old cracked phone screen. Next to her, Daniel clenched his jaw, fists tight. Across from them, Olivia, no, Sophia, felt like the ground beneath her was crumbling. "So," she said slowly, trying to understand, "I was born into that rich family." Rebecca's eyes were red from crying. "Yes, baby." Daniel, ever the protective father, gritted his teeth. "But you're our daughter. You'll always be our daughter." Olivia, Sophia, felt her chest tighten. "But I don't look like you. I never have. And now I know why." Rebecca reached for her hands. "That doesn't matter. We raised you. We love you. Tears burned in Olivia's eyes. I love you too, Mama. But what if I belong with them? Daniel stood up abruptly, his chair screeching against the floor. No, you don't belong to them. But I do, Olivia cried. At least, that's what the world says. Daniel's voice broke. I don't care what the world says. You are my daughter. I won't let them take you from us. Just then, a knock came at the door. A lawyer stood outside, holding a court notice. Jonathan Miller was suing for full custody of Olivia. The case became national news. Wealthy businessman Jonathan Miller argued that Olivia, his biological daughter, deserved the life that had been stolen from her. He wanted her to move into the mansion, attend the best schools, and inherit the Miller fortune. Daniel Carter, despite his financial struggles, refused to let that happen. I don't care if they have money, he told the court. That is my daughter. She is mine, and I will fight for her. In court, the tension was unbearable. Jonathan Miller took the stand first. My daughter was stolen from me. She grew up struggling when she should have had everything. I refuse to let her remain in poverty when she has a right to a better life. Daniel Carter stood up angrily. She had love. That's more than money can ever buy. The judge banged the gavel. Order in the court. The lawyer for the Millers stood. Your Honor, Olivia, who should have been Sophia Miller, was denied a privileged life. Mr. Miller simply wants to correct that mistake. Daniel's lawyer stood next. Your Honor, my client has raised Olivia with love and care. She has flourished under his guidance. Money does not create a father. Olivia sat between Rebecca and Daniel, feeling torn apart. Sophia, now sitting with the Millers, felt the same. The courtroom was suffocating. Then the judge turned to Olivia and Sophia. You are both 16 years old. You are old enough to have a say in your future. So, I ask you, where do you want to go? Sophia, who had lived in wealth all her life, stood up. Tears streamed down her face. I don't know who I am anymore, she admitted. But I do know this. The people who raised me are my family. She turned to Elizabeth and Jonathan. I love you, Mom. But Dad. She looked at Jonathan with hurt in her eyes. You only see me as a mistake. Jonathan frowned. That's not. It is, Sophia said firmly. I don't want to stay in a house where I feel like I don't belong. She turned to Rebecca and Daniel. I want to stay with them. My real parents. Daniel exhaled deeply, relief flooding his face. Rebecca sobbed, covering her mouth. Jonathan clenched his jaw, looking betrayed. The courtroom turned to Olivia. Her heart pounded. She stood up, looking at both families, the Carters, who had raised her, and the Millers, her biological parents. I never imagined a life of wealth, she said softly. I always believed I was a Carter. She turned to Daniel and Rebecca. You are the best parents I could have ever asked for. Daniel gripped Rebecca's hand tightly. But Olivia swallowed, looking at Jonathan and Elizabeth. I also want to know where I come from. I want to know my biological family too. Jonathan straightened up, hopeful. Olivia turned back to the judge. I want both families in my life. The court went silent. The judge nodded. After reviewing the case and considering the statements of both girls, the court rules that Olivia Carter will remain with the Carters as her legal guardians, but will have visitation rights with the Millers. Sophia Miller will remain with the Millers, but may visit the Carters at her own discretion. The courtroom sighed collectively. The decision was made. Jonathan wasn't satisfied, but Olivia had spoken, and Sophia had made her choice. The transition wasn't easy. Olivia visited the Miller mansion, but never quite felt like she belonged. Sophia struggled with life outside of wealth, learning what it meant to live modestly. Both girls felt lost, but they had each other. One evening, Olivia and Sophia sat on the roof of Olivia's small house, staring at the stars. This is weird, right? Sophia said, hugging her knees. Olivia chuckled. Yeah, really weird. Sophia turned to her. But I'm glad I found you. Olivia smiled. Me too, sis. For the first time in 16 years, they knew who they really were. And no matter what, they would face the future together. The Miller and Carter families sat across from each other in a dimly lit office at St. Mary's Hospital. The air was thick with tension. The hospital board members sat on one side. Reporters whispered in the back, and the woman who had caused their lives to spiral out of control, Nurse Margaret Lawson, stood trembling in front of them. Her aged hands shook as she clutched a crumpled handkerchief. Tears welled in her tired eyes as she avoided looking at the two girls, Sophia and Olivia, who were now facing the most heartbreaking truth of their lives. I, I made a mistake, Margaret began, her voice barely above a whisper. Elizabeth Miller, her usually poised face red with frustration, slammed her palm onto the table. A mistake? You stole my child, she seethed. Daniel Carter clenched his fists. Why, Margaret? What possible reason could you have to do this? Margaret swallowed hard, glancing around the room as if looking for an escape. I was desperate, she finally admitted. I had debts, my son was in trouble with the law. I needed money, and someone powerful, offered me a deal. They told me to switch 2 newborn girls, and I did it. Gasps rippled through the room. Rebecca Carter's hands flew to her mouth in horror. You did this for money, she choked out, her voice breaking. Jonathan Miller narrowed his eyes. Who paid you? Margaret hesitated, her lips trembling. It was the hospital administrator at the time, Dr. Alan Whitmore. The name sent a wave of shock through the room. Dr. Alan Whitmore had been one of the highest-ranking officials in the hospital 16 years ago before retiring under mysterious circumstances. Jonathan's jaw tightened. Why? Why would he do such a thing? Margaret shook her head. I don't know the full story, but he mentioned something about an arrangement, a deal with a powerful man who wanted leverage over a rich family. He never told me who, but he said the baby switch was part of it. I didn't ask questions. I just did as I was told. Elizabeth's breath hitched. You mean my baby, Olivia, was taken from me not by accident, but on purpose? Margaret nodded, shame written all over her face. I tried to forget. I convinced myself it wasn't a big deal. I told myself both babies would grow up loved. But I was wrong. She turned to Sophia and Olivia, her eyes pleading. I am so sorry. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but please, I need you to know, I never wanted to hurt you. Sophia looked away, her hands gripping her dress tightly. Olivia, on the other hand, spoke in a low, steely voice. You ruined our lives, Olivia said. Because of you, I grew up poor when I could have had everything. Because of you, Sophia lived a lie. Do you even understand what you've done? Margaret broke into quiet sobs, unable to respond. The revelation sent both families spiraling. Jonathan Miller turned to his lawyer. We need to go after Whitmore. Find him. Bring him to justice. But before any action could be taken, an unexpected argument broke out between the two families. I don't care about Whitmore, Daniel Carter snapped. What I care about is Olivia. She's my daughter. I raised her. I fed her, clothed her, and loved her for 16 years. You think you can just take her from me now because of a blood test? Jonathan, who had been holding back his frustration for weeks, finally exploded. She is my daughter. She belongs with me, with her real family. You think because you played father for 16 years, you have the right to keep her? Played father. Daniel's voice turned dangerously low. I am her father. Olivia, caught between the two men, felt her head spin. Stop it. Both of you. All eyes turned to her. I don't belong to either of you, she said, voice shaking. I don't know where I fit. I don't even know who I am anymore. Sophia, standing beside her, grabbed her hand. You're Olivia. And I'm Sophia. That hasn't changed. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. But it has. You have no idea what it's like to live every day knowing you're in the wrong place. Sophia squeezed her hand. Yes, I do. As the argument continued, it became clear that the adults were treating Sophia and Olivia like prizes to be won in a battle of money, legal claims, and emotions. The media was already reporting on the scandal, and soon, everyone would have an opinion on what they should do. But the decision wasn't theirs to make. It belonged to the two girls whose lives had been stolen. Sophia took a deep breath and turned to her parents. Mom, Dad. She looked at Jonathan and Elizabeth. I love you both. You raised me, and I will always be your daughter. But I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. I need to know where I came from. Elizabeth's lip quivered. Of course, sweetheart. Sophia turned to Rebecca and Daniel. I want to know you too. I want to understand what my life would have been. Then, Olivia spoke. I won't choose one family over the other, she said firmly. I won't live in some mansion with people I barely know, pretending I belong there. And I won't forget the people who raised me, either. You're both my families, and I'll decide how to have relationships with you on my terms. Both families fell silent. Jonathan clenched his jaw, but finally nodded. If that's what you want, Olivia, I'll respect it. Daniel's shoulders relaxed, and he gave a slow nod. You'll always have a home with us, sweetheart. Tears spilled down Rebecca's face. Both of you will always have a home with us. Sophia and Olivia exchanged glances, their decision made. They refused to be victims of the past. They would decide their own future. A few weeks later, the news about Dr. Alan Whitmore broke. He had fled the country years ago, and his role in multiple illegal deals was finally exposed. The hospital was forced to take responsibility for their negligence. Meanwhile, Sophia and Olivia began a new chapter, one not defined by wealth or poverty, but by choice. Sophia spent weekends with the Carters, learning what it meant to be a part of their world. Olivia, while still living with the Carters, slowly built a relationship with the Millers, visiting their home and trying to understand the life she never had. In the end, they weren't just switched at birth. They were reborn as sisters. The Miller household had never felt so tense. The grand dining hall, once a place of laughter and elegant conversations, was now thick with silence. The chandeliers glowed above, casting light on the untouched plates of food. Sophia sat at the long table, her fingers tracing patterns on the edge of her napkin. Across from her, Jonathan Miller watched her with a heavy expression. Elizabeth sat beside him, her eyes tired, as if the weight of the past few weeks had drained her completely. I still don't understand. Jonathan finally broke the silence, his voice low. How can you say you want to stay with them, after everything we've given you? Sophia took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. Dad, I love you. You and Mom raised me. But I can't just forget the people who loved me for 16 years, even if they weren't my biological parents. Jonathan's fingers curled into fists on the table. They weren't supposed to raise you, he muttered. We lost so much time with Olivia. And now, we're losing you too. You're not losing me, Sophia insisted. She hesitated, swallowing hard. I need time to figure out who I am. I can't just walk away from the only family I've ever known. Elizabeth reached out and touched Jonathan's arm. Jonathan, she's right. Her voice was soft but firm. We can't force this. Sophia isn't a prize to be won. She's our daughter, but she's also theirs. Jonathan sighed and leaned back in his chair. I just wanted to make things right. Sophia's voice cracked. Maybe this is what right looks like now. Across town, in the small but warm Carter home, Olivia was packing a bag. Not because she was leaving permanently, but because she had decided to spend more time at the Millers to get to know her biological family. Rebecca sat on the bed, watching her daughter fold her clothes neatly into a suitcase. You don't have to go if you don't want to, she said quietly. Olivia turned, kneeling beside her mother. Mom, she said, taking her hands. I will always be your daughter. Nothing will change that. But I have to know them too. They're my blood. Rebecca's eyes glistened. I know, baby. It's just, I never thought I'd have to share you. Daniel appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. Just don't let them turn you into someone you're not, he said gruffly. Olivia smiled. Never. Rebecca hugged her tightly, whispering, no matter where you go, you'll always have a home here. In a small courtroom, Nurse Margaret Lawson sat before the judge, her hands trembling. The years of guilt weighed on her like 1,000 bricks. Across from her, the Millers and Carters sat side by side, two families forever changed by her actions. Miss Lawson, the judge's voice rang clear. You have confessed to switching two newborns, an act that has caused irreversible pain to two families. Do you have anything to say before sentencing? Margaret wiped a tear from her cheek. I did a terrible thing, and I have no excuse. I wish I could take it back, but I can't. She turned toward the two families. I'm sorry. I stole time from you, from your daughters. I deserve whatever punishment you give me. Jonathan leaned forward, his jaw tight. You had no right to play with our lives. Margaret flinched, but nodded. I know. Rebecca's voice was surprisingly gentle. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I hope you find peace. The judge delivered the verdict, a prison sentence of 5 years. As Margaret was led away, Sophia and Olivia exchanged a glance. Justice had been served, but their lives were forever altered. Months passed. Life slowly adjusted to its new normal. Sophia spent weekends with the Carters, helping Daniel in his mechanic shop and learning how to cook with Rebecca. She found comfort in their warmth, realizing that love wasn't measured by wealth, but by presence. Olivia, meanwhile, started attending etiquette classes and business meetings with Jonathan, slowly stepping into the world of luxury she had never known. But she never let it consume her. One evening, Both families gathered at the Miller's estate for dinner. It was awkward at first, but as the night went on, laughter filled the room. At one point, Olivia and Sophia stood side by side, watching their two worlds blend. "This is weird, huh?" Olivia murmured. Sophia chuckled. "Extremely." Olivia glanced at her. "But you know what? I wouldn't change it." Sophia smiled. "Me neither." Jonathan and Daniel exchanged a glance from across the room. The two men who once fought for Olivia's custody now saw things differently. "I guess we're family now," Daniel admitted. Jonathan exhaled. "Yeah, I guess we are." As the night wound down, Elizabeth and Rebecca sat together on the porch, watching the girls talk under the stars. "You know," Elizabeth said softly, "I used to think family was about blood. But now, I see it's about love." Rebecca smiled. "I think we were meant to be in each other's lives, even if it wasn't the way we expected." Sophia and Olivia looked back at their mothers, and in that moment, they both knew. Family wasn't something you were born into. It was something you chose.